Easter, Fireworks of Freedom by Karisa Moore. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. We should have fireworks on Easter, a friend shouted as we studied the resurrection story. Her exuberant declaration sparked my thinking. If I were to celebrate my salvation, what would it look like? The moment I met Jesus, my once dead senses were now alive. I listened to depressing music on repeat, but I heard the lyrics for the first time, and their effect on my mind and body was sickening. I craved soul-lifting worship. I was in awe of the kindness and provision shown to me, which I knew I didn't deserve. No longer dependent upon concocting my answers and way out of my horrendous mess, I surrendered to Jesus and felt the horror of my sins and the joy of freedom Jesus offered. It was exhilarating and humbling. The world took on a richer color. I became aware of allies and enemies that affected my well-being, and I hungered and thirsted for the Word and closeness to God. The change was decisive and intentional. Truly, it was a prodigal child celebration. So why, years later, do I have moments when I'm tempted to return to my old habits? Can you imagine any slave once given their freedom, choosing to go back to that slavery? Yet I do it all the time. Are you tempted to return to old patterns like me? I'm grateful that we're given examples of some of the temptations in the early church. In this passage, Paul describes slavery as sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, and orgies. Verse 19. If Paul had to tell the Galatians to live in freedom, chances are good they were choosing to go back into the yoke of slavery. Just after my oldest son died, I came face to face with some of my own slavery. I sat there cross-armed, anger boiling inside me. The person across from me was revealing some idols she saw me worshiping. Though I didn't like her correction, she wasn't wrong. She helped me to recognize that idols aren't just statues we place on our mantles. They are anything we value above God and anything we're willing to sin to achieve. I idolized my children's safety. It's a good desire, but if I'm willing to usurp God's plan for my children to meet these desires, I'm not living in freedom. I struggled with fear and worry and became controlling, always trying to remain 2 steps ahead of anything that could hurt them. This attempt to control is idolatry. It leads to fits of anger and envy of anyone I perceive has an easier life than mine. At the core, I didn't think God could keep them safe, so I attempted to be God for them. Beneath every motive for sin is the belief that God will not meet our needs and desires. I need consistent, intentional reminders of the freedom I've received. So, as I ponder Christ's sacrifice, death, and resurrection this Easter, I want to throw a party. He laid down his life for me. He died for you. What would my celebration look like? Flowers are a must because nature has always testified to the fulfillment of God's promises, provision, and power in my life. Outside in nature, I'm encouraged that nothing is impossible for God. The seeds hidden beneath the ground of obedience will always produce good fruit. I want to send notes of encouragement to other believers who planted truth and cultivated my soul along the way. I'd sing worship music at the top of my tone-deaf voice and review scriptures that have changed, equipped, corrected, and strengthened me. Verses like Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, and Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 9. These verses built a firm foundation of faith in Jesus Christ. I could hope and trust the outcome no matter what I experience. Ephesians made clear that my salvation didn't emerge from my right living, but was a gift from God. And that gift still expands my world. We don't have to live chained to idols. We can maintain freedom by practicing the fruits of the Spirit Paul lists at the end of Galatians chapter 5. The fruits of the Spirit, freedom, are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. That deserves some fireworks. Questions for reflection. What old patterns of thinking or behavior creep back in for you? What symbols remind you of the freedom you've received in Christ, and how will you celebrate this Easter? Meditate on the following freedom scriptures and plan an Easter celebration. Romans chapter 8, verse 21, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 21, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17, Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, Ephesians chapter 3, verse 12, James chapter 1, verse 25, and Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2.